Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the 8th Annual Planning Retreat. This late summer gathering has a rich tradition now, having given us two 6-year statewide plans. That was the 09 plan and the 15 plan. And last year we unveiled the initial draft of the re-engineering task force report. And we're gathering this year during some uncertain and certainly challenging times that include quite a scary roller coaster ride on Wall Street. And I know some of you have been watching that today. And of course, the tragic helicopter crash in Afghanistan that was the worst loss of life suffered by U.S. forces, including many victims from Virginia, in a single incident in a decade-long war. And yet, this retreat offers us a chance to take kind of a hard look again in the mirror to see what our community colleges are, and more importantly, talk about what we want them to be and what we need to be. And we certainly have accomplished a lot, and there still is a lot in front of us. Our community college system was born, as you know, about 45 years ago. And it was born from that spirit of innovation. We were simply willing to do what no one else would do. State policymakers at that time were seeking a solution to the challenge of offering higher education and workforce training to communities that were growing and looking for opportunities, and they were growing more diverse. And I think today is an appropriate time to ask, is that spirit of innovation still with us? Is it still moving us? Are we still on that leading edge? It's easy to forget those same students we served in our first years, the ones who got their class schedules and grades delivered to their mailbox. It's easy to forget that today they're getting their Social Security checks delivered to that mailbox. Yet, this weight of tradition, it's growing on us, of habit, of rules, assumptions, some rituals. Sometimes I ask, do they hold us back? Are we as hungry, as creative, as innovative as we were 25 years ago? Because we were certainly driven when we began. We rolled up our sleeves. We would use duct tape if we had to, or bubble gum, when necessary, to help women and men position themselves for careers that would let them support a family and pursue the American dream with vigor. That's what we did. And many of us, I am one, are living the benefits of that. Over time, we became disciples. My editorial, others have shared it. Over time, we have become disciples of what some call the iron triangle. This is a metaphor for describing the way we work. The triangle connects 3 dots, makes 3 corners. Those 3 are cost, quality, and access. And dramatic changes to one of those corners, we often warn in our speeches, will diminish one or perhaps of both of the others. And in many ways, that iron triangle has become somewhat of a cage. For example, a funding cut limits the number of people we can serve, and sometimes even impacts the quality of what we offer. That's the triangle. I believe that spirit of innovation will eventually destroy that cage, if it hasn't already started to occur. So my concern is that innovation is coming at us, and probably not enough from us right now. And we do need to change that. Now, I know change is hard and it's slow and it ain't easy. Of course, it's a scary word. The idea of doing something different is hard to accept, even when we know the status quo stinks, or is mediocre, or somewhere in between. Change occurs slowly, even when the need for it is so clear and the benefits are so obvious. I want to give you a classic American example of that, one that's timely given that the pennant races are just starting. Of course, I'm talking about baseball. Baseball. The game's roots are hard to pin down exactly. Some say it's based on an English game from the mid-1700s. Others trace it back to a bat and ball game played thousands of years ago in Egypt. But we know this. The first American game of baseball, one that we would recognize, occurred in 1846, and official rules were written the year before. And baseball quickly became dubbed the America's pastime. It was played by Civil War soldiers during their downtime. The first professional team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, played in 1869. They went undefeated that year, traveling the country, taking on any local amateur team that would play them. Charlie White and John Cabin can back that up. They were young boys then and witnessed a few of those games. Oh, they won't forgive me for that. But you know what was missing for the first 25 years of baseball? Something no player used on the field. A glove. No one used the baseball glove. Not even the catchers. Can you imagine how many fingers were broken or mangled over those years? No one really knows. The first glove was used in 1870 by a Cincinnati player trying to protect an injured left hand. The next glove player wasn't seen for 5 more years. And their gloves looked like leather work gloves with the fingers cut off. And those who dared to put on a baseball glove were ridiculed. They were called sissies, or being accused of being soft for not catching the ball barehanded. The fans and the media wanted their players to be tough guys with mangled hands, I guess. And that's why baseball gloves are traditionally a flesh tone color of brown. Some players hoped simply that the fans wouldn't notice they were wearing a glove. In 1885, a shortstop for the Providence Grays added padding to his glove in an attempt to protect 2 broken fingers. The world's first padded baseball glove was on the field. 10 more years passed before the last player took to the field barehanded. In 1895, the first rules were written governing gloves. Every fielder now used them, and they were being mass-produced by a company run by a retired Chicago first baseman named Albert Spalding. By the way, it wasn't until 1920 that someone thought to put webbing between the fingers to make catching the ball a little easier. Now today, we wouldn't go in the backyard with our grandkids or anyone else, play a little catch without a glove. We just simply wouldn't do it. So there you have it. It took 75 years for the spirit of innovation to inspire a simple change to the game of baseball. Despite the very real risk of injury and the null effects gloves have on the way that baseball is played, a common sense change took nearly a century to break through the game's myths, its rules, its habits, or to break out of its iron triangle. There's a valuable lesson in that for us as we confront the challenges facing our community colleges in the 21st century. Don't get me wrong, folks, we are successful. Virginia community colleges, we're serving more people than ever before. Our financial aid numbers are increasing, our dual enrollment numbers are increasing, we're working with more employers to attract and retain more jobs here. We're increasing the number of gifts and grants our community college fundraisers earn. We're becoming more of a talking point for the president and the governor whenever higher education is discussed. And last year, the General Assembly, to our surprise, made a modest investment that we did not expect after years of losing a lot of their investment. It is seductive and comforting thought to say, well, let's just hold the line. Let's just keep on keeping on. You know, I get that. But pulling you together for a summer retreat and looking at the needs of the Commonwealth and the country and our students, if we just had a summer retreat of backslapping and high fives and popping the champagne corks, it would be a lot of fun, but it would be a mistake. It would signal that I was simply focused on today and the past, when in fact, I think you really need a chancellor who is focused on tomorrow. Just like the old Fleetwood Mac song says, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. And that's what I do. I think Virginia needs us to keep focusing on tomorrow. There's no guarantee that our success will continue. We're 45 years old, less than my lifetime. Ironically, our model of higher education has never been as needed and maligned as it is in today's America. A high school diploma is no longer the finish line. We know that. And before this decade is out, 2 out of every 3 jobs available in Virginia will require some form of post-secondary education, and we know that too. But our model of higher education, the same model that educated us, the same model that we have dedicated our careers to, that same model that we promote with the passion of a preacher, that model is coming under attack. That's not hyperbole or an overstatement. Our model of higher education, our system of it, is under attack. It's under attack from partners who are running out of money. It's under attack from opponents who don't think we do a good enough job. It's under attack from friends who think they can do better. It's under attack from the very people that we serve, students and parents, who have watched their tuition and fees double over the last decade, and some of them are hit at the breaking point. And it's under attack from employers that we serve, who are growing tired, in some cases, of the gap between what's taught and what's needed from those that they need to employ. I just want to take a moment to talk about some of our critics. Perhaps create that sense of a burning platform. First, let's talk about partners who are short on money. As public institutions, we have been bound throughout our existence to the well-being of government budgets. Now, when the Virginia General Fund sneezes, we come down with the flu. And I'm talking about our friends. I'm talking about our supporters. I'm talking about people who go by the first name of delegate or senator or governor, good people who simply are running out of money. From 2008 to today, we've lost roughly $100 million from those friends in operating support. And according to some recent analysis, and it was published today, you can read it, According to recent analysis, state leaders may have to close an additional funding gap of $800 million over the next 2 years. So that message is pretty clear. Going to the General Assembly with the ask, brother, can you spare a few dollars? It's just not going to cut it. Now, we have to fill most, if not all, of that gap with innovation. A hot and angry summer in Washington gives us even less hope for support from our friends there. As you know, the national conversation focuses almost exclusively on cutting the federal budget. Witness the elimination of tech prep, the reduction in WIA funds. And these will be just the beginning. The message from across the Potomac is clear to me. For decades, Congress has been in this mode of giving, and they've turned the corner, and they've entered into an era of taking it back. Filling the gap there to some degree are incredible partnerships that have emerged, such as our partnerships with national foundations, with Gates and Lumina, our work with Jobs for the Future, and others. They're terrific to work with. But make no mistake, their wallets and their patience have limits too. They are directing their resources at results, not rhetoric, solutions and not sound bites, and answers and not just efforts. Next, let me talk about the critics who say we don't do a good enough job. Have you heard of Peter Thiel? He is the co-founder of PayPal. And he says our nation's model of higher education has failed the majority of the people it tries to serve. And he's putting his money where his mouth is. Thiel made headlines last spring when he began offering a $100,000 grant to students to skip college and instead work with Silicon Valley tech wizards to further develop their ideas in areas such as biotech and energy. In other words, he's betting a lot of money on the notion that some of today's STEM leaders can do a better job of preparing tomorrow's STEM leaders than we can. He began with 24 students, $100,000 each. Some of them dropped out of Ivy League universities to take the deal. Thiel is simply critical of today's price for a college education and, for many, an increasing debt load that's being heaped on students. In some cases, dollar figures that you'd expect to see on home ownership loans, not on school loans. He says students shouldn't risk a lifetime of financial ruin for making the mistake of pursuing an unmarketable field of study. There was a time when critics like Thiel would be laughed out of the room. But in a recent Time magazine study, a few months back, it was revealed that 85% of last year's college graduates with bachelor degrees were moving back home with mom and dad after graduating with their bachelor's degree. Now, I know folks who cried when their kids left, but I now know them, they're crying when they're coming back. No one's really laughing about that. Let me talk about some of our friends who think they can do our job better. Have you heard of Western Governors University, WGU? It was created in 1995 by 19 governors who identified online learning technology as an answer to a problem. And the problem was, how can we generate access and get people to a bachelor's degree at a lower cost? Simply stated. WGU is a private, not-for-profit university that offers bachelor's and master's, not associates, not yet, bachelor's and master's in IT, healthcare, and education. They charge $3,000 for every 6 months that you're with them. But more importantly, they have removed time as a constraining factor. Students don't enroll in classes. They don't accumulate credits. Instead, they pursue competencies, or they just verify that they have learned them elsewhere. Their students are completing, their completers are completing a bachelor's degree in about 33 months. And every 6 months they pay $3,000. Now, those in the accreditation business scoffed at it. In fact, they fought it. But it's amazing what 19 governors can do, because they got it through. And WGU is an accredited institution of higher education. They graduated their first student in November 2000. About 2003, around there, they had about 500 students. They now have 25,000 students. Of that 25,000, 1,000 are from Virginia. They're growing at about 30% a year. The spirit of that innovation is carrying them elsewhere. WGU was just hired by the state of Indiana to be the state's official online university. And I was just with their president 3 weeks ago. Smart guy. Came out of educational software. And Bob approached me. He said, "Glenn, do you think Virginia would like to have a similar deal?" I ducked. Because we're working on something. Right, Andy? But they would like to partner with states like Indiana. Oh, and by the way, in Indiana, it's called WGU-I. It's their university. Private. Innovative. Getting more people through, lower costs. They broke the iron triangle. Over the last year, we've seen for-profit colleges generate a lot of skepticism and bad headlines. Their innovations have come at a price that more and more people are finding unacceptable. But Western governors, I just hold them up for Exhibit A. There are others out there. On the other hand, they seem to have used innovation to really break through that triangle that I described earlier, educating more at a lower cost, providing high quality. Don't take my word for it. If you Google them and take a look at all of the there are thousands of student testimonials, and there are hundreds of testimonials from companies, many of them thumbs up, particularly from employers. So that spirit of innovation is what we tried to tap into when we began the process of rethinking. It certainly was in our DNA when we began 45 years ago. And we wanted to kind of rethink ourselves again. And we started that process about 18 months ago. And we face a simple choice now moving forward. We can work within our organization to direct the change needed to elevate what we do, or, and this is probably that burning platform, or outsiders will bring that change to our door and perhaps kick it down. We announced our re-engineering efforts 2 years ago, following a mid-year tuition hike. That work, led by some great leaders, Bob and Jack, rounded out with a talented dream team. That work of the task force paced and informed the work of Governor McDonald's Higher Education Commission. We're in their report saying that what we're doing is living up to the spirit of the governor's commission. And now we have 30 re-engineering kind of task force ideas that we're exploring and in many cases implementing. Some of those ideas will serve as the focus of our breakout sessions shortly, after I get done. And they'll frame the focus for today and hopefully tomorrow and the weeks and months ahead. But it is fair to say that what we have done so far is a darn good beginning. It is really impressive. I guess perhaps you share this, maybe those that were really close on the task force. Kind of a surprising discovery we made in this work is we found that too often Virginia's community colleges, its rules, its assumptions, are holding back Virginia's community colleges, or we're being kind of held hostage by our past. We have seen an example of that in a work that we're doing called Win-Win, where we're finding there's thousands of Virginians out there that have big bags of credits and no post-secondary credential. We have found students who have successfully finished all of their coursework. They have left our colleges without the credential for reasons such as they didn't ask for it, or they have an unpaid parking ticket, unpaid library fine. It's taken us 45 years to understand that not all our students need the same set of math skills. And think about that for a moment. We risk our student success numbers and our reputation, and not to mention a student's future, for something maybe in some cases less than $100. But the rules are the rules, and our people are bound to support them and enforce them. And those kinds of rules have built up over time, but what we put together the past 45 years will not serve us well in the next 45. Let me give you perhaps another example of some stubborn insistence on separating something we call academic and workforce services. We kind of keep them separated. All the while those around us are connecting those two more closely than ever before. Employers want skilled workers. They don't really care if the credential is academic or workforce or non-credit. They just want to believe in it. So the work moving ahead of creating the rules for the 21st century community college, we can rethink that. We can rethink all of that. And I think that is the spirit of reengineering. The sessions we plan for you today and tomorrow are intended to spark those conversations, not to end them, to generate some ideas, not to suppress them, and to position us to not simply find answers, but to make sure we're asking some tough questions, some right questions. About questions, if you're like me, sometimes you find thoughts and questions popping into your head. Sometimes at the oddest moments. Maybe some of those questions wake you up, or they keep you company on a long, for me, bike ride, or a long drive, or maybe while you're taking a shower, they start coming at you. I can't stop thinking about this institution if I tried. And I thought I would just take the personal privilege of sharing with you some of the questions that I ride with, or that wake me up, or occasionally when I get an opportunity, I pop it in a president's meeting. And in no particular order, they go something like this. Why do we require students to petition for their degrees? Why must they ask for something they have already earned? What can we do? Here's another one. And this one is fascinating me. What can we do with open source material to reduce the heavy burden on our students with respect to textbook costs? I was in Washington recently. The community colleges in Washington are doing this. They identified a number of courses that consume a great number of textbooks. They showed their faculty the open source world. And today they have many, many hundreds of textbooks that cost no more than $30, and many are less. And last year they saved their students $7 million. Here's one that the innovators are making me think of. Why do we design credentials based upon courses taken instead of skills possessed or skills that we can help them develop? That innovation that's a threatening one, because that is coming at us. But we have shielded it away. We won't let that one could break the iron triangle for us. Here's one. I drive around a lot. Why are our community colleges closed on weekends? Why can't we offer an accelerated degree program? You know, maybe it's on Friday nights and Saturday, and it's supplemented with lots of online opportunity. I'd love to be able to put up, I saw it today, 0 to bachelor's degree in 2.5. We can't put ours up next to that one. It's 0 to associates in 5.0. Why can't we put one up that says 0 to associates in 1.0? Why? It's not for everybody. Western Governors is not for everybody. And I guess one that I would eventually like to answer, and I would need your help, is what would it take to determine if your community college is a high-performing organization? What are the fair and accurate measures it would take to capture that? I'm still confused about mandatory assessment practices that all too often don't have mandatory placement. I still scratch my head on why we're still in the late registration business when most of those folks who register late won't make it. Until recently, we knew all these high school students were coming to us unprepared, and we just sat and waited for them to show up. Half of them that come to us, they show up, they're unprepared. I'm encouraged by how some of you are starting to swim upstream and try to fix that problem before they leave high school. Here's one we bought into. Alumni can't help us in fundraising. Why do we ignore our alumni when it comes to fundraising? We were their launch pad. John, I hope you hit Kevin up for a big, big number, man. I mean, you launched him into a great career, right? You got his card. You know, it takes money to make money. I mean, what support and resources do we need to give to our institutional advancement people to position them to capture more of the gifts and the investments and the grants that people are directing to higher education, but we get a small chunk of it, a piece of it. And this one's personal. Why, for Pete's sake, would we require a criminal justice student to take bowling? I don't understand. I am still pissed off about that deed. So look, those are just a few of my questions that I ride with. Maybe some wake me up. I hope you have some. And listen, don't be afraid to put your list out there. I mean, that's why we're here. That's what rethinking is all about. And we have the authority to do that, rethink it. We have the talent here to find the answers, and we have the talent to become the innovations that others talk about and emulate. We certainly have the talent to ensure that our 23 community colleges are high performing and stay on that cutting edge. And unlike the game of baseball, I don't think we have the luxury of waiting 75 years to enact some common sense innovations. I don't think you do either. And as I look around this room, and it is an impressive group of people, I see leadership of a sector that has grown from serving in its first year 7,500 students. That retreat, probably that first year, could have fit in one of the rooms over across the street. To last year serving 400,000. And I see a leadership that's confident enough to face and take on our challenges and creative enough to overcome them. I see a leadership that in many cases has been where our students are today. They have lived the challenges that they face, and they know what it means to be a first-generation college student. We have a proud history. It's not long, but we have a proud history of leadership within the Vccs. But it's never been stronger as it is today. So I want to thank you for your energy, your ideas, and your hard work. And I guess I'll close with this. As our good friend Ed Barnes likes to say, together we are on the verge of greatness. Thank you and enjoy the retreat. Right.